Do you have a friend who seems to know you better than you know yourself? How about that person you can count on to show up no matter the circumstances? Our topic today is grand friendships, the friends who see you as you truly are. So, welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart, and Taria is still on vacation. So, we are wishing her much fun and much excitement. The big question that we're here to answer is how does the average entrepreneur like us, who started with limited time, zero marketing budget, and little to no presence in the marketplace, get their authentic message into the marketplace and become a person of influence? Most importantly, what skills must you learn and who are you required to become to attract your divine client and build a loyal following? So I am so very excited for our conversation today. I am sitting down with someone I have come to know as probably one of my besties, if I can use those words. She is dynamic. This is a powerful woman. And can you say fun? This is someone I have loads of fun with. So, before we jump into our topic, I'm going to take a moment and introduce this beautiful lady. So, the woman I have the pleasure of sitting down with today is a real estate agent with over 50 years, 30 years. And so she's
Feels
got
like 50, Suzanne.
so she's got lots and lots of experience. You can hear her on Life Inside Track, and her husband have been doing that for many years. She and her husband are the owner of a real estate brokerage, and their commitment is to help individuals use real estate to generate wealth. They help you build strategies. What I love about this individual is her commitment to family, her commitment to friendship, and her willing to just be who she is in the world, to be her authentic, transparent, true self. So please help me give a warm welcome to my friend, Miss Yetta Decker.
Hi,
Hey,
everybody. This is so good. Hi, Suzanne. I gotta say hi to you too, right?
I'm excited for this conversation. And I'm excited because this conversation was born out of a deep, can I say deep?
Deep. How
Deep.
about, yeah, I've been saying this phrase for the last few days, scaling the heights and plunging the depths.
One of those conversations that we had as we hung out at my house on the weekend. And I said to Yetta, oh, this is a conversation. We need to record this conversation. So I want to give everyone the backdrop. So I want to talk a little bit about how Yetta and I met. And we have been friends for a little over 3 years, I believe. And when most people meet us, they think we have like an 18, 19, 20-year friendship. And it's 3 years old. Now, how it occurred was I had a beautiful client by the name of Agnes. And Agnes, every time I would see her, she would say, you need to meet this woman by the name of Yetta Decker. Now, how many of you have heard that? And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you don't really take it on. Every time Agnes and I would meet, she would say, you know what? I have to make arrangements to introduce you to Yetta Decker. And I'm like, I have no idea who Yetta Decker is. And to tell you the truth, I didn't Google her. I didn't look for her on Facebook. I was like, okay, whatever. So one day, Agnes calls me and she says, Yetta and her husband are doing an event in Ottawa this weekend. I want you to come with me. And I said, okay, when is it? And she told me it starts at 8 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday. Now, I live an hour and a bit from Ottawa. And I'm thinking, 8 a.m. That means I have to leave my house like early. And that means I have to get up early. However, because Agnes was so persistent, I want you to pay attention to this. She was so persistent, I said yes. So I go to this event, I walk into the room, and I see this dynamic, what's the word, is dynamic woman in front of the room with her husband. And they are having this beautiful banter, and they're being authentic, they're being real, they're being transparent. They are just truly being who they are called to be in the world. And in a moment, it was like this. I said, ooh, I need to get to know this woman. And all I kept wondering was, what was it that Agnes saw in me and in Yetta that she decided we had to meet? So Yetta and I, a few months later, I'll let Yetta fill in that blank. A few months later, we go for a quick dinner. A quick dinner turns into 4 hours. We have conversation. We have depth. We have connectedness. And the friendship has gotten deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper ever since. And so Yetta coined it a grand friendship on the weekend. And so we're going to unpack why she coined it and why she called it a grand friendship. And this is what I want everybody to get: the difference between a grand friendship and a best friend. Mm. Yeah. So yeah, fill in the blanks about, kind of why, as this woman drops you a message on Messenger and says, hey, do you want to meet? And why did you say yes? And why has this friendship evolved?
Well, I said yes because the day you were in that room, there was maybe 3 dozen women in the room and a handful of men, because I like to have some men around the room because it changes the conversation, right? It changes the dynamic. And so I don't do everything with Ken, but I do a lot of things with Ken because there's a different energy that gets associated when we mix it up a little bit. And so that particular day in the room, I knew probably 50 to 60% of the people in the room.
Mhm.
And they're all lovely humans, wonderful people. And yet there was this one woman in the room that I'd never met before. And she showed up. And at that point, I would have said poised. I felt like at any moment, Suzanne, you could have picked up the microphone, come up to the front of the room and taken over. But you didn't. And you didn't say anything that really made it sound like you were going to. It's not like I thought, ooh, this is the threat or anything. It was more like there was an energy that came off of you that made me go, she's got it going on. Like there's a level of energy that just feels like home, even
Mhm.
then. And so I did actually at one point. You didn't volunteer a whole lot. I could see you were helping navigate the table and the conversation. But at one point I thought, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to see what she's got to say, even though she didn't volunteer. And you did beautifully. And it was like, there's value, there's depth, there's meaning, there's insight. And so this is a woman I'd like to get to know.
I love
And
it.
yet I ignored your message because I didn't see it.
And I think as we were talking, I think what part of what Agnes said, and we're gonna have to do a call to find out. Um,
I
was
have, but she just said, I knew that I knew that I
I
knew.
knew. And I think in my mind, part of what she saw was two women who were growth oriented, like hungry growth oriented, and also that were willing to be themselves, that were had done enough work in who they be, that they were willing to be themselves. And she was like, you two need to meet. I think the other thing she probably saw unknowingly were common values, right? Common values. So we're going to unpack today this thing called grand friendship. However, as you jump on, I would love for you to let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, and what brought you out today. Let us know if you're an entrepreneur, if you're working, and who you're called to serve, who are your clients. Comment, comment, comment. Light up the comment section, whether you're listening to this live or whether you're listening to this as a replay. If you're listening to the replay, hashtag replay, but do tell us who you are, where you joined us from, because we'll come back and look. Also, we want you to like and subscribe to the page so that we can keep you notified of these amazing interviews that are going to be popping up on a weekly basis and possibly at other times. So that's what we're going to ask you to do. And we're going to ask you to engage with each other, comment on each other's comments, get to know each other, because this is our opportunity to do some virtual networking. This is our opportunity to get to know one another. And so without further ado, I am going to get this party started. So Yetta, are you ready, my dear?
You know, I was born ready. except when I want to have a nap. But other than that, I'm born ready.
All right. So welcome to back to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart. I am sitting down with the beautiful Yetta Decker. And our topic today is grand friendships, the friends who see you as you truly are. So we're going to dig into we're going to start with what is a grand friendship. So Yetta, I know we had a deep conversation on the weekend. We went places and spaces that I didn't expect to go. And so, and it ended up being a beautiful conversation, but I think it also brought us closer together. And so you said to me in the middle of this, you said, Suzanne, I'm going to call this a grand friendship. So what is the difference between a grand friendship and a best friend? What is a grand friendship?
Well, I think there's some commonalities. I mean, you're going to have shared values, which you've already addressed. You're going to have you're not necessarily going to have all like activities, but you're going to have something that draws you together.
Yeah.
Best friends are going to have something that pulls you together. I think the distinction for me, and I think they're all going to be unique and different, because I think of the grand friendships I have, and I don't think we only have one. I think we can have several. I don't know that we're going to have 30 or 40, but we might have 5 or 10.
That would be work.
That would be so much work, right? Because they do take effort, but then so does a best friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the distinctions is, for me, and maybe not everybody's going to see it the same way, is with a grand friendship, you're ready for the unexpected.
Mm.
You're ready for what you don't know what's going to happen, but you're really ready for anything. And for me in best friendship, sometimes I think I've moved into a place of maybe taking it for granted. Like,
Wow.
I don't know about you or those that are connecting with us, but have you ever taken a best friend for granted? Because it's like she's your bestie.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of owes it, or he owes it to you. But a grand friendship, it's almost like it requires more of me and more of them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I was thinking about it, I saw a grand friendship as we were talking as someone who's going to grow me. And 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 so it's an individual in my life that I spend quality time with, and they don't allow me to coast. They don't allow me to just be. They're those individuals that I'm close with, I have depth with, but they're going to call me on stuff, and they're going to put questions and thoughts into my space that demand that I grow. These are the iron sharpen iron friendships. And I can have a best friend, and there isn't the iron sharpen iron sort of situation. There isn't the I'm going to challenge you and grow you. And not because something came up. That's just the way we do life. And so I think the reason grand friendship resonated with me is its expansion. These are the friendships in my mind that expand you.
And as I love that, Suzanne, and totally agree with you. There's a huge growth element. And over
Mhm.
the last days, and as it's been percolating, and as it's been sitting, and where I've had the opportunity to have some really intense conversation with other grand friends, because I think when you're on that role, it expands, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, I can come up for air now. That would be really nice. But they're there. And one of the things I've seen is each grand friend may stretch and grow you in a totally different area.
Yeah.
Right? They're not all one size fits all. So one of my grand friends, it's really about growing me in the area of fun and play and energy and doing silly things. And then with Suzanne and I mean, we'll sit, and this I think is a distinction for us, not necessarily for all grand friendships, but literally we'll sit and begin a conversation, and 4 to 5 to 6, 7 hours, we're going, so what time is it?
Yeah.
Should we eat? Oh, wait, did we have water to drink? Like, are we taking care of ourselves in the
Mhm.
midst? So I think a grand friendship and best friends could lose time, but you get lost in things that you don't even intend to get lost in. Like there's an intentionality in the friendship, not necessarily an intentionality in the thing that expands you.
I love that. And I think it is, when you said you don't know what to expect, I think that's really indicative of it because, as you take on growth and as you take on expansion, you end up in places and spaces that you're like, how did we get here? How did we evolve into this conversation? And the other thing I was thinking is can a grand friend be of the opposite sex? Right? Because I know for a lot of people, it is a grand friend is someone who is often the same sex. And I truly believe that you can have a grand friendship and it could be someone of the opposite sex. And again, it is that person who grows you. Like I have some brothers from another mother that call me on stuff, that push me, that stand for me. And it is truly those friendships I value because I'm better because of them.
And they're better because of you.
Absolutely.
There's definitely, I think, in any depth of friendship, there's hopefully a mutuality of benefit, not at the same time
Mhm.
necessarily. If you're stretching in an area, I might not be stretching as much right then, but then later I'm stretching you or you're stretching me, and there's this back and forth that takes place. But I think for sure in any grand friendship, it is mutual. It's not going to be one-sided, although we may get different things from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's very true because we all come to the friendship with our giftings and our talents and our places of brilliance. And I think in a grand friendship, we tend to lean to each other for that brilliance. I lean to you guys for guidance around real estate and relationship and all those different things. And you lean to me for different things. And I think that is what a grand friendship really is I can count on you to be there for me in these areas more so than I would anyone else.
I love that. And of course, we lean to you. If I'm having a bad day and I need to get my brain right, or my husband's driving me crazy, I will call you just to say, ah, and you'll say, that's really funny. You're going to be fine because you always navigate it, right? So, very quickly, you can get me back on track in an area where maybe my own self talk isn't doing it.
Oh, I love that.
Because, right, when you're a mindset mastery mentor, which is who you are in the world, it's who you are to us too. And it's
Mhm.
not like I need to rely on you every time I'm frustrated for a moment, but there's this safe place where you will sharpen me and you won't let me sit in it for very many seconds.
Yeah,
I was going to
yeah.
say minutes, but I don't even think you give me minutes. I think you
Yeah,
give me
maybe a minute,
seconds,
maybe a minute.
maybe. So
You-
it's beautiful that we can. Iron sharpens iron is a beautiful way to say it, Suzanne. I love how you put that into the space.
as you were talking, the thing that came to me is that a grand friendship is someone who will remind you of who you are in the times that you forget. And they won't sit with you in those places and spaces that don't serve you. So as you said, I will let you have your moment, you'll let me have my moment, and then it's like, yeah, okay, enough. And it's almost like, let me remind you of who you are, how big you are in the world, how important you are, how unique you are, how gifted you are, because in this moment, you may have forgotten.
Right. Borrow, and often the way I like to think of it is let each other borrow the belief we have in them when our belief disappears.
Mm. So if you're
Borrow my belief, Suzanne. Like if you need to
absolutely,
in this moment, forget about yours. I'm not even going to try and convince you nothing. I think it's a grand friendship is one where you're not trying to convince.
no, absolutely. And I know there's things I have done and I'm doing, and I've borrowed yours and Ken's belief in who I be in
Yeah.
order to keep moving and keep navigating. And I know there's times where I just need a boost of, oh my gosh, I need someone to remind me of my capacity, my capability. And that's what we do for each other. So as you're listening, if you have a grand friend that knows you better than you know yourself and is a stand for you and will remind you of who you be, celebrate them in the comment section. Let us know, let them know this is who you be for me. This is who you are. So Yetta, one of the things that we talked about was a grand friendship takes commitment. So what does it take to build a grand friendship? Because, we said you can't have 30 because it takes commitment. So talk a little bit about what it takes to build.
Well, I'm going to start with a 4-letter word,
Oh
and
dear.
that starts with T. Time.
Yeah.
It takes time. So as much as you alluded to that and you actually stated clearly, we've really only known each other about 3 years. And even when we've known each other 18 months, somebody met us in an environment where we were in a professional environment at a high-end conference. And they said, how long have you known each other? And I said, 18. And they go, oh, we can so tell. And I said,
Mhm.
18 months. And they went, what?
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
didn't compute for them because the intensity of the connectedness was energetically noticeable even in a professional environment. And it's not because we were holding hands or because we were sitting on each other's lap or doing anything goofy. We were acting professionally, but there was a level of connectedness. So I think whether it's time over an extended period of time or it's an intense time, I read, and I believe it to be true, until you have about 300 hours in, you don't, in the relationship with one another, hopefully face to face, but it can be done on Zoom. I have a grand friend that I've met twice, and it's been built over Zoom, but we've invested way more than 300 hours in the relationship. So time is a big piece.
And
If I, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, it's not, I think it's also the quality of that time. And because I am present to people who have spent loads of time together, years together. Yet when they're together, they're kind of not. And when they're together, they're not always present. And we know all the distractions that exist in the world right now, cell phones, video games, computers, all these different things that has people be in the same place, but not be. How often have you seen people at a restaurant and people are on their own devices and they're spending time together, but they're not present? And I think the one thing about a grand friendship is that it's one of those times where I clear the deck for you. I put away my devices for you. When we are together, we are going to be eyeball to eyeball. We are going to be looking each other in the eye. We are going to be present. We're going to be tracking each other's conversations. We're going to be asking provocative questions. And I think that so time is not just time, but it's quality time that makes up those 300 hours, in my opinion.
100% agree. So if I can add another 4-letter word with it,
Go
it's
ahead.
real time,
Oh,
like real there, not somewhere else, not thinking
mhm,
about what's on my sticky note that's next to my desk, not who's phoning me, what's the vibration, what's going, it's like actually here. And it,
mhm,
as you mentioned, like eyeball to eyeball, sometimes it's just shoulder to shoulder. We did an
mhm.
amazing 3-hour hike. And in fact, you were ahead of me for part of it. And I was busy swatting mosquitoes off your body because they got bad in a spot, right? So like even that becomes a setup for a memory for the grand friendship.
Mm. So shared memories would be another one. You know,
Yeah.
as I'm thinking it through, I think that uh, a grand friendship also has a high level of acceptance. I accept you for who you are and who you're not. I accept you for all your unique quirks and ways of being, and I trust that you're going to accept me from who I am and all my quirks and ways of being. So I think there's a high level of acceptance that is present in a grand friendship. There's a very little judgment. There's very little make wrong. And I know one of the things that you say all the time is there's not a make wrong.
No, I 100%. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have had lots of good friends that want to fix me.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I looked, I wasn't broke.
Yeah.
I wasn't broken. I wasn't in pieces laying on the ground. So therefore, I don't really need fixing. It doesn't mean I don't want to be refined. It doesn't mean iron doesn't want to sharpen iron, but there's a difference when I feel wrong for who I be versus that maybe my behavior just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Very,
Absolutely.
very different. So I think acceptance is a beautiful word to put into the space. And it doesn't mean we're the same. We celebrate our sameness. We
Mm-hmm.
got lots of those. And we celebrate and appreciate the uniqueness because we bring a richness. I'm going to use the word richness here, not
Mm-hmm. For
rich. We
sure.
bring a rich, another 4-letter word, rich, rich aspects into each other's life because of the uniqueness.
You know, as you were talking, I also want to make a distinction because I don't want people to collapse acceptance with no accountability. And so it's a very clear and subtle distinction. So I can accept you and at the same time challenge your thinking. I can be fully accepting of who you be in the world and still ask a question that I know is going to stretch you, that's going to have you bump up on the edge of something. And so I think that it is a way in which I challenge you and you challenge me that creates the safe space for us to go exploring and be curious. And so we're not accepting of all of just being. I think we're accepting of the individual and giving them the space to explore, fail, be wrong. Um, and I think it's just like you'll be wrong. I will help you. I'll help you get back up. I'll help you brush yourself off. I will love you. And then I'll say, so did you think about this? Or did you look at that? And I think it's always done with love and appreciation and the knowing that I'm not in judgment. I'm being a stand for who I know you're committed to being in the world.
Agreed. A stand. I think I want to focus on that word, even though it's not a 4-letter word, and I do like those today. A stand for each other, both when we're having a really hard time and
Hmm.
when life is really good. I think in
Hmm.
grand friendship, one of the things they let down is any need to be better than or compare or be like, or it's not a competition.
Hmm.
It's a stand for. I
Hmm.
want you to have the best clients in the world to serve. So I want to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. I don't
Hmm.
want to see you fall flat on your face. And if you do fall flat on your face in something, I want to stand there with you and with any grand friend and pick them back up
Yeah.
after they have their few minutes.
You
So
know,
there's that stand is a beautiful word. I love it, Suzanne.
and I think, one of the things I cherish about my relationship with you is your willingness to celebrate me. And not only celebrate me, but and remind me to celebrate myself. And so there's not often friendships where I'm having a like a moment of like, yeah, do you believe what just happened? And you are right there with me asking questions and in the joy of it and in the celebration. And how often, and we've talked about this, how often have you not you've hidden your light rather than shine it because you know it's going to be put out or it's going to be dampened because the other person can't be in the celebration without it being the comparison.
Because they're going to feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
because it's not there. They couldn't do that thing. Well, no, I can't do the thing Suzanne does. And I'm not meant to do the thing that Suzanne does because
No.
it's meant for Suzanne to do, not for me to do.
And I think the beautiful thing about living in the celebration, for me, it's inspiration. So when I see you or I see your husband Ken win, it inspires me and it reminds me of what's possible for me. When I watch the breath and the things that you take on, it reminds me that, oh, this is possible for me. And I think what I'm getting at is equity. And so we are different in so many ways. However, I don't put you on a pedestal, you don't put me on a pedestal. There is an equitable relationship. So I see possibility for myself through you. And it may not be the exact thing. I think it's the stretch, right? It's the growth, the go beyond that I'm like, ooh, that's juicy. And I can stretch too.
And I think it's a back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about on the weekend that we don't stretch necessarily at the same time.
No.
So we
No.
don't have to take a turn at the same time. Sometimes it's just time for Suzanne to celebrate for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour because she's had an experience that warrants that.
Yeah.
And another time it's my turn. I
Yeah.
mean, I think in a grand friendship, if it stays too one-sided for too long, the friendship's in trouble. You got to work that out because now there's a strain rather than a stretch. So how do we
Absolutely.
stretch without cramping our foot,
Mm-hmm.
having a strain?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's how do we not become self-absorbed and that's when we take the friendship for granted. So I think it's really is that back and forth in terms of, and it's not tit for tat counting.
Mm-mm-mm.
I think it is being present to the other person. And when I'm present, I notice. And when I'm present, I'm attentive. And when I'm present, I see things. And I think that is really, when we talked about quality of time together, I think it's that whole concept of being present. And I think what's really interesting is that we have spent, we don't spend like, people might be thinking, wow, they spend a lot of time together. They're always together. No.
No.
However, when we choose to make time, we make time and we plan and we clear the deck and we do all these things so that we can have quality when we are in each other's space. And I think that's huge because I'm not the person, don't call me every day and ask me what's up. Because I'll be like, nothing changed from yesterday. Why are you blowing up my phone? This is a ridiculous call for me. Right? Because
True.
that's quantity without depth. I like depth. So don't call me every day. But when we do get together, it's like, what's up? And there's lots.
And we're good about knowing, I mean, we're similar in that regard, which is what allows this grand friendship not to be too much for either of us. Because if we were to talk every day, it could be 5 weeks, 6 weeks sometimes where
Mm-hmm.
we're not connecting, and then we might connect a little bit more um, over a shorter period of time. It can happen. Sometimes it's 3 months between the time we see each other,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be um, all the time. Because sometimes people will say to me, like, my best friend, I talk to her every day, we text every day, we're in connection every day. It's like, that may be a great fit for you. And I think so each grand friendship has to identify, what does it look like? We're
Mm-hmm.
not identifying at all what it should look like for you. There are some commonalities, and of course underneath it all has to be trust.
Mm. So let's talk about that for a moment. The big trust word. And
Ooh.
and you know, I I think there's two things, as you say, trust, that really resonates with me. Is I think we both had a willingness to come to the relationship extending trust to each other. So we weren't necessarily dragging old baggage, and we all come with baggage. So I'm not saying that we have no baggage, but there's a difference when you put the baggage of something else in the space of that friendship, and the person has to work the way through the old baggage in order to have even a semblance of trust. So I think the first thing that happened was we came to the relationship willing to give each other a certain level of trust. And then I think that what began to happen was we made a commitment to build trust. And what do you think allowed that to happen? Because I have my ideas, but I'm interviewing you. So
I think we're interviewing each other. I got questions for you too, my friend, but I know my place, right? So I think what allowed trust to happen is we didn't have to be, I'm going to go back to this word, we didn't have to be right.
Mm,
When I don't have to be right, I can trust the relationship to reveal what it needs to reveal. I don't have to prove my way. I don't have to cajole my way. I don't have to convince my way. There's many times we agree to disagree.
mhm.
And there's nothing wrong. In fact, everything's right about that.
You know,
We're
yeah, and I think even in our willingness to disagree, there's such learning, because we have been able to shine a light on perspectives for each other, big time, on perspectives that I would not have seen, um, without you shining that light, without you giving me the lens to which you see the world, without you sharing the experience that you had. And now I'm sitting in a different place. Will I run off and do that? Not necessarily, but you've expanded me because of the willingness to communicate perspectives.
I love that. It's back to this sense of what I'm hearing and just keeps running through, vibrating in my body is nothing's wrong.
No.
Everything's right. Even if it's a different vantage point, even if it's a different viewpoint, even if I'm sitting sometimes and I'm feeling a way about a thing. This is
Mhm.
Suzanne's phrase, and I love that phrase, Suzanne. She feels a way about a thing, and we can feel the energy on each other because that's part of what happens in a grand friendship.
Yeah.
You can start to feel the other person. And so if I'm feeling a way, or I think she's feeling a way, sometimes there's nothing to say.
I, you
Just
know,
let
I
it be.
it reminds me, and I can feel the emotions behind my eyes as I share this, coming to your house and walking in the door, and you both looked at me and you just gave me a hug. There was nothing said. There was nothing, there wasn't a prying. There was just a, we see you, we can feel you, and we're just going to love on you for a moment and just give you a space to be. And I think it was a day later that we had a conversation about what's up, but it was just this safe space to just be, and being allowed to be as I vibrated in whatever it was. And I'm not even present to what it was. I'm present to the experience of being cared for and accepted.
And I think a grand friendship allows for that space to feel away and like feel, because we feel feels all the time. I mean, my goodness, the experiences you've had, Suzanne, the experiences I've had, the experiences anybody that's connecting with us right now has had, causes situations to come up where you get, we'll use the word triggered in a
Mhm.
negative way, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the person in front of you. So why even spend time dwelling on that? So I think in a grand friendship, there's space for that, but not to make it the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I want to talk about understanding. And it's not a four-letter word, it's a long one, Yetta.
Um,
Understanding. And and I think you know, Stephen Covey says, seeks first to understand, then be understood. And I think that one of the key things about growing our friendship is a desire to understand. So everyone looking, I'm a Black woman, she's a white woman. Uh,
no,
we walk in different worlds in many ways. Our lens to which we experience the world is very different. And I think that what has happened for us and is a safe space to explore, particularly in this time, because there's so much that's happened in a very short period of time. It's like the world went crazy. And so what was really neat was we didn't ignore the conversations that were happening around us. And we didn't ignore the experience that was happening around us. As I at times was in upset, you were in upset, we were in ambiguity. We're sitting in different places in terms of the experience, and it was a lot. And I think what grows and makes grand friendships, you know, stand the test of time is that willingness to understand and to explore and to have some really tough conversations that put us in vulnerable places and say we're going to do this and we're going to be okay.
we are going to be more than okay. We're going to be phenomenal because, again, it's back to that no make wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we can have our own experiences, we can have our own paradigms, we can have our own perspectives, and we can sit in what is up for us and what it feels like for us without, I think that it's, again, it's not a short word either, but I've said it a few times, I gotta say it again, there's no competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a competition.
Yeah, I think there's no competition, and I think that there is no attachment to a perspective. So I may come to the conversation with a perspective that I truly believe, and I may be committed to that perspective. And we will have in a conversation, we will have a conversation that opens my eyes. And you know people who their eyes been open and then they just close them because the perspective is too threatening. The perspective is like it's ego threatening. I don't mean it's threatening, but it's ego threatening. And so I think what's really been beautiful about how we have come to be is that we have been open to perspectives that challenge who we be in the world. Yet we're like, okay, I can see that. I can try that on. I can be with that. And I think that's huge.
Which is almost what I'm hearing you say is there's really not much that's off limits.
Mm.
Even how we think or how we feel, or it's not, we're okay to be. So here's a four-letter word. We're open to what
Mm-hmm.
might be down the pipe, open to a new perspective, open to a new vantage point, but there's no forcing that has to happen.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to define commitment in the context of what you're saying,
Yeah.
because our my best friend, another grand friend, and you know each other. And one of the things she says all the time, there's nothing you can't say and there's nothing I can't hear. And I remember the first time she said that to me, it was in a tough moment. And she looked at me and she said, there's nothing you can't say and there's nothing I can't hear. And I was like, wow, that says a lot.
Yeah.
And beyond that, there's a commitment to the friendship. So what she's really saying to me and what we've experienced is I'm committed to the friendship So even if you say something that's going to disrupt me, even if you say something that I'm going to be like, oh, did you just really say that? Or it's going to have me have to go look at who I be. I'm more committed to the friendship than my position, being right, looking good, all those different things. And I think that's what, for me, has made this relationship work, is we're more committed to the relatedness with each other than anything else.
100% agree. And as you're talking about that in I'm going to say mutual friend, because
Mhm.
her and I have really gotten to know each other
Yeah,
well, because
absolutely.
you've given the space for that. So I think inside brand friendship, the other thing that's there that exists is not a lack of exclusivity. There's
Yeah.
room for more.
Well, I think it's a desire to share,
A-
right? It's a,
Absolutely.
it's
And
a
it
desire to share my people with this amazing person.
and likewise, right?
Yeah.
So it's this, we love each other's families, and not that every grand friendship has to spill over, and yet it likely will, because
Mhm.
you're not living in isolation,
Right.
hopefully, because this person's important to you. So you want the other people that are important to you to know this person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I,
Well,
and I
sorry.
and I which is what we do.
It's so
We're just like
juicy.
just on
How
topic.
we are when we're together too, but we feel this time is limited, so we want to make the most out of our time, right?
Um, I think there's such a neat thing when you meet people or a person that you want to share the blessing of that person with other people in your life. And and it's almost like, and we've said this, it's like I take y'all everywhere. And so it's like I'm by myself, but there's certain people I take with me. And when I meet people, I'm like, oh, they need to meet Ken and Yetta. They need to meet this person. They need to meet that person, because the person is such a blessing in my world that if there's someone else I care about, I want them to be blessed, not necessarily in the same way, but I know they're going to be blessed by being in the presence and in relatedness with these two people. And so I think there's a high level of value that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I think it's powerful. You were talking about there's nothing you can't say and there's nothing I can't hear.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean it feels good.
oh, oh,
Just saying.
that's very real in this moment. Yeah, absolutely. And
And when you're a grand friend, you say it kindly. There's not a sense of harshness. There's no finger pointing. There's no negative energy. There just is this thing, whatever this thing is that's come up in our space, that gets to be put into the space.
that we need to talk through,
Right.
right?
And who knows where it's going to come. So I think with grand friendship, you trust that it will bear, it can withstand, it can stand up to, it can hold, it has capacity for the real conversations that don't feel good.
And I think that happens because there's a commitment to leave each other whole and complete. And so even as we've had conversations, and some people might say, man, you guys are still in this conversation. And I think we're in this conversation because I have a commitment to you feeling complete and being left feeling whole. In many ways better than I found you, in that this thing is it's out of you and in the space. It's open. There's no hidden anything, and you're whole and complete, and I'm whole and complete. And I think the thing that we're also talking about is the courage. I'm going to say the word,
Yeah.
the courage to have the hard conversations, particularly when you're the deliverer of the message. Because it is easy to sweep things under the rug. It is easy to say, I'm not going there. This does not have to be discussed. And what we talk about is that the things that aren't discussed are still in the space. And we bump into them or we walk around them, but they're still in the space. And so there's a commitment that I'm going to have the courage to have this conversation so that it's not this thing in the space that we're all navigating. And I know what I'm navigating, and you have no clue, but you know you're navigating something.
It's called the elephant in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's there, whether you can visibly see whether it's pink or purple dotted or gray or whatever color that elephant is, the elephant will grow bigger if you don't address it.
Absolutely.
Now, when we talked about time, what you just brought up for me is the word timing.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that just because this thing is in my space that I now need to blurt it. I
Mhm.
need to deal with it now. I need to rush in and get this thing handled. It may be that you're looking for well, you probably always are looking for the right timing to
Mhm.
have that conversation.
Right. And it's place, it's timing. Are we alone? Is this the right moment? Is this the right place? It's all those, it's all those different things. Are you in a headspace to receive and hear? Because there's days where you got enough coming at you. I don't need to have another thing coming at you. So I think it's all those things. And again, that's the commitment to I'm gonna have the courage to have this conversation, but I'm gonna set the context so that you're left whole and complete. And you don't feel blindsided, or you don't feel whatever we feel when we get the unexpected message.
And it's tempting, because I was tempted not to have the conversation because it was this last one anyway,
Mm.
was I had to step into it courageously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was tempted. So I delayed, but really, I don't know if it was so much a delay or if it was waiting for the right time, because there had been no right time
No, there hadn't.
from, right? There hadn't been a time that made sense. Like, who's in your space? Where are you? What headspace are you in? What
What are you
headspace
up
is
to?
the other person in? What commitments do you have? Is somebody Suzanne was about to go speak at an event that was a big deal. And so for a couple of months, that was your primary focus, to put a difficult conversation or a hard conversation into your world prior to that would have been obnoxious.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
So I think grand friendship cares more about the friendship than it does about getting it done and getting it off your chest.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
We could go on and on and on around this. And I think the reason I wanted to have this conversation was I wanted to share with all our listeners, all our super achievers out there, that we're in a time where so many things are disposable and so many things are happening so quickly. And I know for myself, what makes life a little easier are those people I can count on that aren't going anywhere. And so if you're busy and you're all caught up in being busy, too busy for the people, I'm going to invite you to consider that you might want to carve out time for those individuals who you enjoy spending time with, and cultivate the relationship. We didn't get here by chance.
Mm-mm.
We definitely got here, thank you, Agnes, for igniting it. However, after that, it was by our own intention and design. And so I think we take relationships as these things that happen. No, relationships are nurtured and watered and fed, just like a plant, just like anything you cherish. So if you're too busy, I'm going to invite you to slow down and nurture, because it'll nurture you and it'll nurture that person. I have a question for you. What do you value most about the grand friendships that you do have?
It, I'm going to start where I'm going to end where you started, and that they give room for expansion.
Mm,
They love me enough to accept me right where I am and let me embrace and celebrate myself just as I am, but I don't have to stay there. They
mhm,
give room for me to grow. The iron sharpens iron is incredible. And a little selfish thing that I love about grand friendships is all the little inside things, all the little rituals, all the little phrases, all the little ways of being that are unique to that friendship.
mhm.
Like we have provocative, picante,
Poignant.
poignant conversations. That's I don't have those. That ring doesn't show up for me with any of my other. I mean, I'll say it, but it really doesn't have the depth of meaning as it does with you. And it's a
Mhm,
shared one with Ken. Like if picante is his word, provocative is your word, and poignant's my word.
mhm,
And we have those inside intricacies that just bring so much depth and joy and light to my life and to my business. I'm
mhm.
more courageous and more effective at work because of my grand friendships.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. Um, I want to thank you
Thank you.
for having the courage, one, to have this conversation open, and two, for just the courage to be my friend. And I'm using the courage because um, the relationships I truly cherish are those that grow me. And they grow me not by I'm going to grow Suzanne. How they grow me by who they be in the world, how they show up, the way they express themselves, the way they're committed to growing themselves. Because you can't be in the presence of greatness and not become somewhat great yourself. And so for me, I just love being in the presence of your greatness, and it makes me better. So I want to honor you and thank you for that.
Thank you. And I would, I have a question I've been dying to ask you, and I'm thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? But I think it's valuable to everybody that's listening right now.
Mm,
We've been having a very intimate, personal, grand conversation. And in context of our business as
mhm,
entrepreneurs, as people that are doing things in the world where we are sometimes judged harshly, because if you
mhm,
take a stand for anything, you are going to receive both accolades and you're going to receive other stuff that's not so happy. And some of it's true on both sides of the fence. So, it just is what it is. But I would love to know, Suzanne, how having grand friends, and I know you have quite a few of them, and I love the ones I've met, I love them all.
mhm.
What difference has having grand friends been to the profitability of your business?
Wow, great question. I think the first thing I will say is I get courage from my grand friends. They are my best, best, best cheerleaders. I have said that, if I told a grand friend that I was going to spin on my head as a career, they would say, "You sure that's what you want to do?" And I'd say yes, and they'd say, "All right, we got your back." Um, and so I think is I get courage and I get support from my grand friends. I think I also get truth. So they will not let me go skipping into something that they don't believe it's in my best interest without checking it out and having a conversation where I get to look at it from different perspectives. And in business, whoa, that is a gift because um it's getting a bigger view of something. And when we're in business, sometimes we're just like this because we're so focused on the thing, and then your friends go, "Oh yeah," or "Just look over here." And so there's that. I think my grand friends challenge me, and to be challenged to do more So Mr. Decker told me it was time for a book, and I looked at him and I looked at him and I wanted to say, no, it's not. But in truth, he was right. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, let me get right on that. And so right now we're in the schematics of, just getting some stuff down on paper. And so it is those, one, I'm climbing and they're the lift beneath me, and sometimes they're the ones pulling me. So it's kind of like whatever it is, a grand friend will assume the role if they know what to do. And so that translates into me being more. And when I am more, I make more. I say the leader shows up before the money, the leader shows up before the success, the leader shows up before anything happens. And so I must grow first. And my grand friends are a stand for me growing, and therefore they're a stand for my business growing. And that equals more success, more finances, all those wonderful things. So that's my long and short.
That's a fantastic, like, I think it's such a brilliant thing because we can get, sometimes we talk about grand friends, it can feel touchy-feely,
Mhm.
but it's so also, and then, yes, it has a beautiful touch and a beautiful feel to it, but it also actually grows your bottom line.
Well, I don't think you can do it without some of those people in your corner. I mean, you got to have, I just started, ask who, not how. And so you got to have those who's, and those who's are very specific. And without them, you don't have lift in the same way. And so yeah, for sure.
So juicy. I love
I
you.
know, I know. Well, everyone, I have been sitting down with none other than my grand friend, Mrs. Yetta Decker. And these are the types of conversations that we have. And she is just a beautiful soul that is a stand for my greatness, and I am a stand for her. And she'll be back because I'm sure we'll be in our conversations, and we'll come up with something else that we're like, oh, we need to talk about this. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
So until we meet again, please know you're brilliant. Know you are also very special. And we do this work because the world is waiting for your unique gifts. We will be back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so until we meet again, stay blessed. Yetta, thank you so much.
And thank you.
You are so welcome.